The fourth industrial revolutions or industrial 4.0 is the era capable of autonomous exchange of information, triggering actions and control each other's independently. Globally, the term Industrial 4.0 refers to technology such as autonomous robot, big data analytics, cloud computing technologies, Internet of Things, adaptive manufacturing, system integration. Early this year with the aim to increase the country readiness in harnessing the potentials of the fourth industrial revolutions. The National Fourth Industrial Revolutions policy has included the construction sector as one of the 6 supporting sectors for the National 4IR policy in Malaysia. The Construction 4.0 Strategic Plan is a roadmap for Malaysia construction sectors to embrace the fourth industrial revolutions in a way that will transform its productivities and competitiveness. Building information modeling has been identified as one of the 12 main technologies in Malaysia's CIDB Construction's 4.0 Strategic Plan. But then, how ready are we? Globally, developed countries such as US, UK, Denmark, Korea, Hong Kong, Australia, and Singapore has already have BIM mandate in place. Other countries have future BIM mandates and BIM programs planned. How about the adoptions in Malaysia? Currently, the level of BIM adoptions in Malaysia stands at 17% as compared with 71% in the United States, 39% in the United Kingdom, and 65% in Singapore. But then, what is building information modeling? In Malaysia context, building information modeling is defined as a modeling process, technology, and associated set of processes to produce, communicate, analyze, and use of digital information models throughout the construction project life cycle. Let us have some basic understanding of what is BIM and the terminologies that is often used in BIM. Some people say they use BIM level 1, level 2, and level 3. Some people say I use BIM 3D, 4D, 5D, even 7D. Some people say my BIM is LOD 300, LOD 400, LOD 500. But what do all this mean? BIM level is the level of BIM maturity. BIM level 0 is the good old days where drawings are produced manually using computer CAD software. BIM level 1 is where the 3D models with no significant model-based interchange in between the different disciplines. In BIM level 2, each party designs the 3D model with digital information. These information are then shared between the parties. This means that each party, say the architect or engineers, utilize the BIM in their own platform and then share the digital information with another party. In BIM level 3, it integrates the 3D model and digital information are integrated through the network and cloud-based applications in real time. This means that any changes made by the architect are immediately reflected in the engineer, QS, contractors, and developer 3D models. But then, what are then the BIM dimensions? 2D and 3D design are the design that we use using the current CAD software, where we can produce 2D and even 3D design model for visualization purposes. In BIM, we incorporated the time element or the scaling into the design, where we call it BIM 4D. We can also incorporate the cost element into the BIM model, where we call it BIM 5D. In BIM 6D and 7D, we incorporated the as-built information and even O&M element into the aid for facilities management purposes. BIM LOD or BIM level of development are the phases where BIM are utilized. For example, BIM LOD 100 is used during the planning stage and BIM LOD 200 is used during the preliminary stage. During the detailed design stage, we have LOD 300 with the approximate geometric aid with dimensions and details for costing and bidding purposes. We even have BIM LOD 350, which includes connection details for interfacing between the disciplines. BIM LOD 400 is used during the construction stage with details as on fabrications and installation and assembly, which allow the constructions to split the construction requirement and assign it to various subcontracts. In BIM LOD 500, it is where we incorporated as-built information for O&M and facilities management purposes. The benefit of using BIM includes it reduces the disciplinary conflicts, reduce crashes by doing crash analysis in advance, improve productivities, reduce reworks, and produce accurate visualizations. In Malaysia, the Malaysian government has realized the importance of BIM implementations in the construction sector and implemented several national policies to promote the usage of BIM technologies. BIM technologies has been included as one of the main emerging technologies for Construction 4.0 under CIDB Construction 4.0 Strategic Plan. We also target that 100% of all government projects above 100 million will be using BIM and 70% of private and public projects above 10 million will adopt BIM. BIM e-submissions with auto-checking capability has been introduced to all the local councils with city status in Malaysia. The Construction Industry Development Board of Malaysia has introduced many incentives to promote BIM in terms of policy, promotions, training, resources, as well as facilities adoptions. CIDB, through My BIM Center, as a resource centers to promote and increase the use of BIM system among construction industrial players. My BIM Centers also provide affordable BIM trainings to train the construction players towards the adoption of BIM. BIM's guideline, BIM's roadmap, CIDB Construction Industrial Standard, and even National BIM Library are developed as the resources and guide for BIM implementation. In conclusion, building information modeling is an emerging technology in the construction industry where BIM digital platform integrates the construction information data throughout the whole project life cycles to improve the efficiency, productivity, as well as enhancing the collaborations among the project stakeholders. It is necessary to further promote BIM technologies, including having clear policy, promotions of the benefit of BIM technologies, the development of BIM guidelines and standards, and also to provide affordable BIM training. This effort will improve the BIM implementations, where the benefit in terms of productivity and efficiency in the construction project life cycle, from the planning stage, design stage, construction stage, and building facilities management stage will transform the construction industry. Overall, the AEC stakeholders must thoroughly consider the evolving needs of the AEC industry to adopt and implement BIM technology in the new construction project. The risk of not adopting BIM technologies and digitalization in construction industry 4.0 technology is the construction players who do not adopt will face their product or Nokia moment where they suddenly find that their processes are no longer needed and a competitor has redefined the product and the industry. I thank you all for attending, and I end my presentation today with the quotes from Klaus Schwab, the man who introduced the fourth industrial revolution, and who said the fourth industrial revolution finally will change not only what we do, but also who we are. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, Engineer Wong Jifei. You are really a true engineer, keeping time perfectly. Exactly 10 minutes of your presentation. Now, right, we are time for Q&A. At the moment, I have not received any posts from participants. Please post your questions at the chat box so that I can see and raise it to Engineer Wong. Even for speakers, the rest of speakers, if you like to raise comments and questions to Wong Jifei, please do so. And while waiting for people to post, participants to post, perhaps I'd like to raise to our Engineer Wong Jifei. In your BIM, you talk about the LOD level 500 on facility aspect. Can you expand a little bit more on that facility component? What items are covered in the facilities? Are those? Okay. Does it cover security, surveillance, access control?
Yes. Okay. Basically, I think in the LOD 500, it actually not only includes all the as-built information, that means where it includes all the precise locations where all the utilities cables, where water, where is the fire bomb extinguishers, all the utility services. But it also includes facilities management components, like where we need to calibrate the equipment, when the lift need to be serviced, when the equipment need to be tested, and so on. So when all these information are put into the BIM model, it would form the facilities management that now this equipment is ready and need to be calibrated, or this equipment need to be serviced, or this equipment already reached the lifespan and it needs to be replaced. So all this information is incorporated into the BIM models. It will facilitate the facilities management process much more better.
Interesting. Yeah, I think many of the ASEAN members countries can look at something where we can duplicate our best practice. Still waiting for any more posts from questions. Okay, yes, we have an interesting question here as well. What is the adoption rate so far for the BIM in Malaysia built environment?
Okay, so basically, just now in my presentation, I presented as 17% for Malaysia, but that was based on the 2016 survey. I was told that based on the latest survey in Malaysia, we actually have reached 46% of adoption rate in Malaysia.
Interesting. Yes. We have also time for one last question. Is anybody or comments that like to put? Okay, it's coming up. When Malaysian authority decided to embark on BIM, did they assist the various companies with financial assistance to set up BIM?
To set up BIM? Yeah, yes. I think we have
any financial assistance.
Yes, I think we have actually grants. Basically, it's not, although it's not specifically for BIM, but we actually have two items in the industrial 4WRD policy. They actually do help the company to do the assessment, to assess what they need to move on to the industrial 4.0 and transformation. What they will help the company to assess what they need in terms of facilities, manpower, and resources, so they can apply to the industrial 4WRD. And then NIDA have the digitalization grant, hence that provide the SME company to transform their processes to industrial 4.0. And this actually includes the one for the BIM, when we want to transform into the BIM. We actually, in the My BIM Center, we actually also realize that there are the cost element, where actually the CIDB My BIM Center actually allow the software to be actually rented on a per project basis, where you don't need to buy the whole software, but you can rent it on time or per project basis. That way it will lower the cost of implementation.
Nice. So in terms of training, what about what government services provided for them? training to...
Yeah, basically it's through the MyBeam Center. We have a MyBeam Center in Sunway Petra. What happened is that they actually provide a heavily subsidized training. So they actually train beam coordinator, beam managers, and beam modeler at a very, very affordable rate because it's heavily subsidized by our government.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Engineer Wong Chi-Fei. I'd like to pass on back to the host to show our appreciation.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Engineer Wong Chi-Fei, for his presentation on Building Information Modeling, BIM, for Construction 4.0 technology in Malaysia. Thank you, Engineer Wong Chi-Fei. To start with the next presentation by Madam Jess Woon Waiting, I will pass the floor to the moderator, Dr. Yang.
Thank you very much. Next, we would like to invite Engineer Jess Woon Waiting. I hope I pronounced it nicely. On a paper related to rainwater harvesting adaptations to climate change. Recent case study for 7 districts in Sabah for engineering students during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's welcome Engineer Jess Woon.
Hi, I'm Engineer Jess Woon from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, Malaysia. I will just do my share screen now.
Yes, please do that.
So, everybody seeing the screen?
Yes, nice.
Okay, no problem. It's my pleasure to share with you the topic that is very dear in my heart, which is rainwater harvesting as adaptation for climate change. In fact, we are living in a very challenging time when the pandemic of COVID-19 is still around and our climate has changed to a worse stage. In fact, our global climate is in an emergency based on the statement by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres early this year. And later, we witnessed the extreme weather in 2021 all over the world, whether our Earth is sick. When it turns into summer, the European country find that they have a hot heat wave coming into them with a strong wind and set up a lot of wildfires that is rampant around the forest and the home. In the middle of the year, we see catastrophic flooding in a lot of European countries, causing a lot of damages, and also surprisingly to see rain in Greenland. So the iceberg was actually melting. So something is happening. Here is some of the photographs taken. You see in Turkey, the hills with the trees are almost gone, and city of Belgium is underwater. And this is the Greenland, that where ice sheet underwent intense melting because of the rain for the first time. Then in China, we noticed that also heavy downpour causing a lot of flood. A lot of people have died. And surprisingly, we saw that in Siberia, there are gigantic wildfires swept through the forest, which is unimaginable. So, what can we do with this extreme weather? Can we do something? Climate change adaptation is an adjustment for ecology, social, or economic system, so that in response to the actual or expected climate, we would like to do something. The climate change affected the water access into the world, so there are more severe flood, drought coming down. So it impacted the world, it impacted the water cycle, so also on the amount of precipitation. So worse is when there is an increase in the global temperature. It causes the water to evaporate in a large amount, to become a higher level of atmospheric water vapor, and subsequently heavier and more intense rainfall to the ground, causing frequent flood. For climate adaptation, there are many strategies. However, in looking at the effect of the water access for the world, rainwater harvesting is a good strategy. What is rainwater harvesting? Basically, it's the collection and storage of rainwater for future use. It's not new. Ancient civilization has used this for a long time. So it can be a large scale in community or a small scale in a home, depends on the needs. The study project is in Sabah, Malaysia. Sabah State is in the North Borneo, bordering with Sarawak State, and in Kalimantan, Indonesia, and Brunei is also in the Borneo Island. Basically, Sabah is covered with tropical forests with long mountain ranges on the west, and it's the equatorial and tropical climate, estimate around 32 degrees for lowland, and also averagely 31 degrees for the highlands. So rainfall is common throughout the year. Then the engineering students are divided into 4 or 5 per groups. So they are to study a district that is from the 7th district here. So the 7th district are Kota Kinabalu, Beaufort, Tanam, Sandakan, Penampang, Tuaran, and Kota Marudu. So you can see that in the map here. So what do they do? In fact, we adopt the rooftop rainwater harvesting system for this particular project. So the students are to identify one existing residential house and one existing industrial building in the district chosen. By using the roof as a catchment area, rainwater is collected from the roof of the house or industrial building. So the proposed design had to incorporate the 6 components of the system: catchment area, transportation, first flush, storage system, delivery system, and filtration system. The student need to find out the proposed harvested water system is self-sufficient and whether it's able to integrate into the household pumping or irrigation system for water use. They also have to estimate the installation and maintenance costs. Basically, this is a desktop study and for literature review. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the movement control in Sabah, the students are not allowed to move freely or travel across the district. In fact, they are not allowed to meet one another. All the study is done online. The fees and the water tariff are obtained from the Sabah Water Department website. The rainfall data are mostly obtained from online and also from the meteorological department. Basically, the project was using a simple formula of rainwater yield calculation is equal to mean annual rainfall multiplied by catchment area times the runoff coefficient. So these are the examples of the rooftop rainwater harvesting design of the student. For the existing residential houses, for a single-story detached house, they propose on the left side and the right side for the double-story terrace houses. Then for the existing industrial building, if we have enough space, they will have rainwater storage above ground. For some of the industrial building, they don't have enough space, so the rainwater storage is underground. So the result, it is possible to harvest rainwater for both domestic and industrial use. These 7 districts have sufficient rainfall to integrate into a household pumping and irrigation system. However, it doesn't mean that the rest of the districts in Sabah are able to do so. It just so happens that these 7 districts chosen are having sufficient rainfall. So the rainfall harvested are not used for drinking purposes, but for other use like washing toilet, washing clothes, cleaning machinery, industrial building, etc. And there is a lot of water assets. So it brings us another suggestion is if this harvested water is treated, most probably it can be replaced for the potable water supply. Let's go into the challenges. It's so good to talk about the benefit and the good thing about rainwater harvesting. There is one big challenge that comes about is the cost. So the estimated cost of installation of the design rainwater harvesting system, including the maintenance, is overwhelmingly costly. The payback period is at least more than 10 years. Wow, 10 years. Normally by this time, the rainwater harvesting system might need to revamp and upgrade. I can assure you, majority of the owner refuse to adopt this rainwater harvesting system because it's very much cheaper to use a potable water supply to provide by the government. It's not able to justify the cost. What can we do? In conclusion, of course, we definitely know that rainwater harvesting has many benefits, able to integrate as part of the water supply system for both residential houses and industrial buildings. However, the suggestion is the government needs to step in to provide the policy to incorporate the rainwater harvesting into part of the building system design. So it would greatly reduce the installation cost when it's designed and built from the initial stage by the developer. With such a policy in place, the government will have a substantial saving in reducing building costly big dams for water supplies. Therefore, it also can reduce the environmental impact in the areas. So thank you very much. If there's any question, I would like to take it now.
Thank you, Engineer Jess. You're also keeping the time very well. We have a bit of time now for Q&A. Now, I'm also waiting for posts from the rest of the participants to send in their questions and comment. While waiting for that, I'd like to just post something. You know, the concept of this rainwater harvesting has always been there, but the fear of mosquito breeding and kind of causing a lot of this dirty kind of environment has always been there among the locals. So how do you overcome this kind of situation?
Definitely, you have to make sure that your system control is well done. It's not the open tank, you know. When you open tank, the mosquito definitely can breed inside. Mostly there is a cover tank, and in top of dirtiness, you know, the roof got a lot of dirty things like bird shit and mouse running across, you know. So what happens is when the first rain comes down, we have this system called first rush. So the first rush is going to clear off, you know, some of this dirt until that the water is clear enough and to go to a tank that is enclosed. I noticed that especially in Australia, they have a very good system that they have covered it. But of course, from time to time, you have to check your tank. Okay, so your tank so that you don't allow any other things that coming in other than the mosquito. Okay, so I believe if the mosquito cannot enter into an enclosed tank, so it will not breed. But of course, the caution is we need to check. There's no such thing as not checking. So that was the maintenance cost come about. See, it's never free. See.
You have any slides or the photos of those setup that you are using?
Not yet, because this is only a pilot study. It's a study only, so I know that a lot of people was asking, you know. But I think if you want, there is a lot of India and all these places that they did it into a condominium. They do it underground. There is a video that is
because we have a bit of time now, so I thought you could share with us some of your slides, some of the photos that you've taken up regarding the setup of those equipment and the facilities for collecting the water.
You want to have a look of the
yes, please. We have a bit of time. Yeah, in fact,
the video from India that I found.
I mean, in Sabah, the one that's happening.
No, not yet. We haven't done anything yet. Yeah. So it's only a desktop study. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because there was.
Yeah. Okay, I saw that increase the cost of development. In a way, it might, but it's not so significant because you are exchanging some of the pipe. The pipe is there, you know, instead of having potable water, in certain pipe is only using rainwater harvesting water. So only in certain pipe that is using potable water. So the increase will not be a lot.
But
in fact, I can tell you,
management of that should be worked into it as well, to be taken care.
I think for the green building index, rainwater harvesting is part of the index, you see. So they will encourage development to use green for rainwater harvesting, but because this is supposed to do it in a bigger scale, like the whole condominiums, but because my study is more for housing, individual housing or terrace houses, like want to convince the individual owner, the public, okay? But if the management can do that in a housing, I mean, it's a big, like condominium, but because here so far we don't have a lot of big condominium, not like Probably Brunei also got a lot, I'm not too sure, in KL and all this. So I can see that a lot of places they are starting to incorporate because of the green building index. I mean, it's part of the green building index that you can get the point.
Okay. What else? Some questions that previously was asking some. I think yes, you draw a lot of attention to quite a few people would like to ask something about the cost of development plus how to convince the authorities in terms of this kind of implementation.
Yes. In fact, I can tell you a very basic. I mean, when you talk about no water, it's good when I tell you about the rainfall. We have sufficient rainfall and all this. So, and you talk about so cheap our water. Tariff is so cheap. I remember, I mean, my house, only two of us, my husband and I in the house, we only use 5 ringgit a month, you know, of water.
Okay.
So who wants to do rainwater harvesting? You know what I mean?
I know, the effort put in to justify the saving, it's quite...
Yeah, but in terms of saving, it's not, but you know what, my house is okay because mine is just very near to reservoir, so I seldom have water problem. But there's one housing estate of that area, not too long from my place. They have water problems for not just few days, it's more than 2 weeks now. You are okay with 3 days. But when it comes to 1 week and 2 weeks, when you turn on the water tap, there's no water come up. How? So it's nice to have the tap water everywhere, but there's no water. Okay? So I mean, this is the practical experience that I have. So you know, of course, I need to expose which authority that
It is a very interesting concept where we face floods. When too much water rains, we have floods, and we are not using the water for effective use. Then
but I do have to say, yes, I do have to say that my rainwater harvesting will not stop flooding.
Sure.
Okay, it will not stop flooding. You have to design from the beginning, you see. But in order for that rainwater harvesting to sort of in a large scale, that probably can reduce the downpour. I mean, into the ground. Okay. So if it's in the community, it probably can help a lot. So because somebody had posed a question, can it stop flooding? Of course, it cannot stop flooding.
No.
You look at the catastrophic flooding, it's not, but it can reduce a lot. Do you know that when it's flooding, you got no water?
Yeah.
You have no water.
During the dry season, the maintenance of that system during the dry season requires a bit of effort as well.
Yes, agree, because the dry season is empty. Yeah. And also, you have to take note, once you install the rainwater harvesting system, it's not like you know, the potable water supply system, you turn on and you turn off, that you just use the water. You have to use water according to the amount of storage.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Asman have said about, yes, it will reduce the runoff. But if you have a proper design, especially in the community, it helps a lot. Because I've seen some of the videos from overseas, how they do a big community. We are trying not to use it just as a detention pond. Detention pond, normally we don't use it for anything, it just detain. But we want to use it as rainwater harvesting is because we want to use it as rainwater harvesting pond, but for future use. Okay, sorry.
We have questions. We have time for one last comment or questions. Just waiting for someone to post one more, then before I pass it to the host.
As I said, I cannot reduce the flooding. Okay. So we need the drainage department to work together.
How optimistic are you that is going to be implemented in the very near future in Sabah? Okay.
If we adopt the green building index, we want to make the city green. If Sabah want to, I mean the government want to make, you know, environmental friendly, rainwater harvesting is definitely one of them that a strategy, you know, that it can be used. You see, imagine you have to build big dam because forever we have increased of population, you don't have enough water supply. That's for sure. See, I've seen a lot of new housing here. I'm not sure in Brunei or other places. What happened is they actually provide a tank for you, but it's for storage of potable water. See? It's not for the rainwater. So most of the house they have a tank. See? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have very interesting discussion. Like, let's pass it back to the host to show our appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Young. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Madam Jas Boon Wei Ting, for her presentation on rainwater harvesting as adaptation to climate change, recent case study for 7 districts in Sabah for engineering students under the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.
To start with the next presentation, I'll pass the floor to our moderator, Dr. Yong.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a technical paper presentations by Dr. Leong Y.E. from Malaysia as well. And her paper is on national policy on climate change. Can I welcome Dr. Leong Y.E.?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, the floor is yours, Dr. Leong.
Yeah, I'm trying to show my PowerPoint. Still uploading.
Yeah, just a brief notes. We give about 10 minutes of presentation and later with 5 minutes of Q&A. So participants who have just joined in, please welcome to post your comments or questions at the chat box. We'll try to answer as many of them as possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to show my PowerPoint.
Perhaps is a post having a duplicate.
Sorry, Dr. have not sent the backup slide to our side.
Okay. You have other slides, perhaps, Dr. Leong?
Yeah, I'm trying to show, I'm trying to share the screen.
Okay.
Okay, should be okay. Okay, can you see my slide?
Not coming up, not yet. No, nothing yet.
Some lagging.
Yeah. It's dark screen, so it should be coming up. Yeah. Yes, we're getting it now.
Okay, so I will just click share. Okay. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Wai from Malaysia, IM. The topic I'm going to share with you is on the Malaysia National Policy on Climate Change. Okay, basically, we have this Malaysia National Policy on Climate Change. The whole framework is basically to assist industry, committee, stakeholders to address the challenge in climate change. The whole emphasis is to reduce the climate change challenges and to promote the mitigation responses. Basically, this whole strategy is to strengthen the country resilience. We try to maintain the climate change and to adapt to the mitigation responses and to improve the implementations of institutions and capacity through all these policies. So you look at here, the principle is basically to develop a more sustainable path and to construct the environment and national resources to incorporate all these climate change considerations, the effective participation and the responsibilities and the capacities of all the stakeholders in this aspect. Basically, this whole strategy and principle has been presented to the recent United Nations Federation's Climate Change Conference. Okay, this is the need of this climate change policy. Basically, there's a possible of climate change in Peninsular Malaysia from 2041 to 2050. So the whole idea is we realize that the temperature will rise at least 2 degrees Celsius. There are more extreme hydrological conditions, for instance, higher rainfalls or maybe lower rainfall. So this one we need to predict. And there will be the possibility of the high or the low of river flow. So all this will have a potential implications on the water resources, the food security, economy loss, repair, and reconstructions. So we need to adapt on all this policy and resource management wisely to enhance the sustainable development. Okay, so this is the national policy of climate change whole framework. The adaptation is try to develop the resources, economy, and social. For instance, the land, water, forestry, agriculture, industry, biotechnology, food security, social welfare. So we would like to have a more resilient climate development and more the proof development for climate change. So the medication will involve the economy for industry, finance, and others. So the emissions reductions on the carbon, climate-friendly technology, financial investment need to be enhanced. So the whole idea is we need to have a low carbon economy and a climate resilient economy. So this is the whole idea of the national policy climate change framework. Basically, we based on the analysis from Malaysia. This report we gathered in 2016. Mostly the greenhouse gas emissions is on energy and the land use change and forestry for emission part only. So others like agriculture, forestry, and other land use, you can see there are also some greenhouse gas emissions. And we realize that all these mitigation measures and impacts on energy is on the renewable energy, especially hydropower, public and private license. They also impact on the energy efficiency and the transportation, especially for the rail-based public transport, and the use of energy vehicles. Also the use of natural gas in our vehicle as well. Okay, and in order to mitigate the impact and measure in terms of waste management, also you look at the paper recycling, the biogas recovery from the palm oil. So these are some of the measures. In terms of forestry, reduce deforestation and sustainable management of forests and the carbon stock also need to be enhanced. Okay, now this is the study based on the ASEAN country. So the effect of country changes in Myanmar, we have the Uyghur earthquake in 2012. Thailand, we have the tsunami in 2004. Cambodia, the Mekong River floods 2011. Malaysia, we have the East Malaysia flood 2014, 2015, and also recently. And we have the Singapore heat wave, Indonesia tsunami, Brunei flood, and Philippines typhoon Haiyan. So these are the studies have been done by the ASEAN. So we have this ASEAN climate vision towards 2050. We are trying to show the pathway to be more transparent and transformative to achieve the Paris Agreement and goal of adaptation and mitigation. So I'm sure that most of you realize that we have this COP26 in Glasgow recently, and this report has been submitted to the conference as well. So the goal is we hope that the current status of ASEAN, there will be a pathway towards, Paris Agreement goals to be more transparent and transformative. We need to integrate, involve, and motivate all this strategy to be more transformation. towards the transformation. So the long-term goals after 2050, we would like to have an enhanced adaptive capacity and net zero emissions, 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius. This is true in line with national and regional development priorities. So this is also a study on the ASEAN country on the greenhouse gas emission from lowland change forestry. So the carbon dioxide emission from fuel combustion, you can look at here. This is quite high from the ASEAN country as well. Okay, so the greenhouse gas emission from low the land also based on Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, you can see that forest land there's some emission of forest land, cropland, grassland burning biomass due to the greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, the countrywide sectoral share of carbon dioxide emissions in 2019. You can look at the electricity and heat populations. Okay, most of the ASEAN countries, they have this electricity and heat productions that have the carbon dioxide emissions. And also you look at residential area as well. So this is the cause of carbon dioxide. We also try to study the ASEAN countries, the impact of energy efficiency development of all the ASEAN countries. And based on our analysis, we realized that for Indonesia, the ministerial budget for green energy and energy efficiency has been reduced. For Malaysia, there's a postponement of energy efficiency law legislations until 2021. Myanmar, there's a delay in development of efficient power plants. Philippines, extension of annual energy efficiency and conservation reports. And we have this Singapore, due to the recent COVID, they have the impacts therefore on the economy. And Thailand, there's some downsizing of the economic conservation. So these are the reports from various countries. And the regulatory framework to promote the renewable energy, we also try to study the ASEAN country status. So the type of policy for regulatory includes the renewable energy in this country. So most of the countries, they have renewable energy, and they also have energy targets. And also they have the premium payments and auction for the feed tariff. Instead of fiscal incentive and public financing, most of the countries, they have the tax incentive and also the public investment rebate as well. And also there's a reduction in sales carbon dioxide taxes. Okay, some countries, they have the energy production payment. So these are the regulatory framework we have studied amongst the ASEAN countries. Also for the ASEAN country framework to achieve the required speed and scale of climate change in this region, the climate change adaptation for resilient development. So we need to motivate, involve, and integrate. Integrate all the adaptation plan in all levels, try to promote the mitigation co-benefit. So this is the study amongst all the ASEAN countries. And then we need to have multi-stakeholders processes to involve in the network as well. And in terms of motivation, the rebate, the finance, the skilling of millions of workforce need to be enhanced. The risks and the assessment need to be promoted, and we need to strengthen the scientific information base as well. So these are the framework for climate change adaptation in ASEAN regions. Okay, in conclusion, in terms of actually Malaysia, we look at the national climate change policy. Actually, these are the long-term plans and commitment, not only for Malaysia, also for the ASEAN country. And this is the intention to reduce the carbon 40% by 2020 or 45% by 2023. Of course, there are a lot of challenges we have faced, especially the energy economy. We need to the challenges we face is to decarbonize the energy, economy. Some of the drivers of this progress is on the personal behavior. We need to change our behavior, our mindset, and we need to have a broader networks to participate in order to enable the whole countries to begin the decarbonizing economy. So there are also some challenges. We realize that limited government capacity, some of the management agencies need to participate actively, and also the international fund, international support, environmental awareness, and all these things need to be alert as well. So this is my sharing on the national policy on Asian country and the Malaysia perspective, and the report has been presented in the COP26 in Glasgow recently. Thank you.
Dr. Leong, you're also keeping the time very well. Thank you. You helped me a lot. Now, we have left with a few questions to be answered, or any comments. Welcome participants to post their comments and questions at the chat box.
Actually, I prefer the sharing from all these ASEAN countries. You can always comment whether the report, welcome to comment.
Perhaps let me start by asking one question. The recent Glasgow COP26 published some of the so-called Glasgow Climate Pact recently last month. Now mention about some softening of the language in certain places. How does this affect your current policy, national policy on climate change? Is there any change or any impact on that outcome?
We still have to study on this.
Okay.
I also want to open up this because I need to understand the whole ASEAN feedback. Since we have all the ASEAN leaders here, can you pose this question to everybody as well, so I can collect more feedback?
Just waiting for more to come in. Wow, I think.
Yourself, maybe yourself as well. I need to listen. I need to collect more feedback.
Okay. I just waiting for one more. Anything other than that? Now, the Malaysia policy is also aligned with the ASEAN policy to climate change. And can you share with us some of the similarity and differences between the ASEAN policy, climate change policy, and the Malaysia policy specifically?
Actually, there are a lot of policy in terms of which perspective.
The climate change and in terms of this what we call emissions policy and CO2 reduction.
So far, there are still a lot of effort. For Malaysia, actually, they are putting a lot of effort to enhance this. Still a lot. I can see that. A lot.
We have yet to form a unified policy, ASEAN climate change policy.
Yes, there's one. So all this report actually is the discussion in the ASEAN level in Jakarta.
Okay, there's one question here. Can you share your experience on negative impacts on implementing new policy?
This slide I'm trying to summarize the negative impact, especially when we talk about green climate change. The impact will be on the manufacturer, civil engineer, contractor, because when we talk about climate change, the green perspective, environment perspective, there are some rules we need to follow, and so it will affect a lot of there are rules and regulations. I think all the engineers here will understand.
All right. I think we will gather all the questions that if we can and put together and perhaps send you to some feedbacks also. Now,
thank you.
Last one, just before I turn to the host. How achievable is Malaysia's 2050 net zero emission target, and how optimistic are you?
My perspective, Just now I show you one slide, right? The net zero, a long way to go. But yeah, still a long way to go.
Okay.
This is the impact. This is the challenges. For instance, the government, the political, also impact.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Leong. I'd like to pass back to the host to show our appreciation.
Thank you, Dr. Yong. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Dr. Leong Wai, for her presentation on National Policy on Climate Change for CAFEO39. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. So you send the soft copy to us, right?
Yes, we will email you the soft copy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
To start with the next presentation by Chu Sun Ho, I will pass the floor to our moderator, Dr. Yong.
Yeah. For the next 10 minutes of presentation will be by Chu Sun Ho, covering innovative coastal geotechnical design for sea level rising adaptation. Let's welcome Chu Sun Ho from Singapore.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's great to attend CAFEO conference in kind of a virtual setting, and it's excited to hear about Dr. Leong sharing about the national climate change policy. I'm a civil geotechnical engineer. What I'd like to focus on is one aspect of that. So climate change has changed many things, and as a geotechnical civil engineer, one of the key aspects that we would like to see is related to climate change. Okay, related to seawater rising. Oh, I get too nervous, on the internet things, huh? All right. By the way, just a check. Can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. So, climate change effect is here, and it's one of the grand challenges. I think that's why I don't have to talk too much, and then it affects everybody. And what I'd like to highlight is climate change effect has wide-ranging ramifications. And to civil engineers, one of the key things that affect us is seawater rising. And of course, plus the air temperature changing, plus the extreme weather, things like that. Now, what I'm trying to kind of cultivate here is we civil engineers, particularly geotechnical engineers, can contribute significantly in mitigating or in mitigating the climate change effect. In fact, one of the very famous geotechnical engineer, Professor Jardine, in the last year, 56 ranking lecture is the most prestigious geotechnical lecture in the year, in the world, and his title is Geotechnics and Energy and Climate Change. He demonstrated that geotechnical engineer actually has matured sufficiently to contribute to resolving some of these challenges. For example, we have been very critical and very significantly positively contributing toward the development of renewable energy. For example, the offshore wind turbine. In fact, for the offshore wind turbine, the foundation engineering play a very important role. Without proper foundation engineering, you can't build that. Now, similarly, in terms of carbon footprint, how can we so-called sequestration, meaning capture the carbon dioxide and store it in the rock, in the soil, deep underground. That's what we geotechnical engineers doing. But yet, there's still one very important aspect that we can contribute. That is in terms of seawater rising. Now, Singapore is particularly sensitive over this seawater rising because, as you are aware, Singapore is just a tiny little island. If seawater rising more than half a meter in a year, I don't know, 2030, 2040, 2050, right, a majority of Singapore city will be underwater, and some part of Singapore will be flooded. And I think likewise, you have a lot of coastal city in Malaysia, in Indonesia, Philippines will be affected severely. So therefore, how as a geotechnical coastal engineers, how can we help to mitigate this negative impact of the climate change is one of the challenges that we are facing today. Now, so I will say that we geotechnical engineers can contribute very significantly in this by suggesting ways to increase the height of the riverman dike, reduce the size of the riverman dike by reducing the amount of material needed, because that will save the exploration of the natural resources. and things like that. And of course, inside here, I also mentioned that there's some other method. For example, reduce sand mining, reduce carbon dioxide emission by reducing the amount of cement we use in our construction, right? So these are also very important in reducing carbon dioxide emissions. And of course, finally, we have to build a very robust, very resilient coastal protection system. Now, so what I'd like to share in this particular talk, short 8 minutes or 10 minutes, is some of the innovative ways that we can do in building up what we call the coastal protection system, including the beach restoration, because the beaches will be eroded by the rising seawater. So therefore, I'm trying to show some innovative and yet green solution and soft solution that help towards here. Right, so I divided my talk into 2 parts. One is application 1 is the geotextile tube for coastal development construction, which you most of you know Singapore do quite a bit of land reclamation job. We need to build kilometer over kilometer of this coastal protection. Now, how can we use geotextile tube as such that we reduce amount of sand that we need, amount of soil that we need in building that? Number 2 is the beach restoration, which again, it can be useful for our neighboring country as well. Now, I just want to mention that both of these innovative solutions make use of some material called geotextile material, which to some of you may be familiar, some may not be familiar. But this geotextile material, when I search a history, I realized that it is developed in the 60s. Right, and it leads to the and when the active use of this geotextile material is when UK or Dutch, Northern European country faced with severe storm surge in 1950s. Right, and of course at that time we didn't study anything about climate change, but actually I can see that the climate change effect already took place in the 50s, where you have a big series of storm surge in the 50s to 60s, and there's a lot of Dutch bridge was failed in the northern UK as well as in the Holland. So that's where they start to use geosynthetic material as a coastal filter material, etc., etc. And 60 years has passed. Now it's another big effect of climate change over the coastal work, and yet geosynthetic material can play a very important role. Okay. Now, so I want to show pictures that this is what we call coastal protection structures. You can see all those brown little things, what we call geotube. Those can be 4-5 meters in diameter, and the length can be 30 meters to 100 meters long. All right, and the fact of using this tube material filled with sand or filled with any other dredge or excavator material inside the tube can form part of the bund, and with that you save a lot of material. Now, when I say save a lot of material, you can just see by this picture. Right, this picture is showing you that if you use a sand bund, the normal sand, which is, well, I would say 90% of the work was done using sand throughout the world, you can see that the volume you need is very huge because the slope has to be flat enough so that it's geotechnically stable. So the yellow color is the volume of the sand that you need. But if you use the geotextile tube, you need only the green color. So can you see, this is only the tube that you need. So you can see in terms of volume, there's a lot of saving. Based on my calculation, up to 45, even 50% of volume can be saved. And that volume saved will translate into better use of natural resources throughout the world, as well as less construction activity. So of course, that will end up with less carbon dioxide emission, things like that. Okay, so that is one of the key things. You can see that this geotextile tube can also be very innovative design, such can fit into different height of the water level. Right? Of course, here I show 6 meters. You can even, we have done work up to about 25 meters. They can say, right? And this is the picture that we've done a few years ago. You can build up this long tube on the coastal area and build up the defense structures easily with that. Okay. Now, some of this tube can be laid on the, we call it barges, and these barges are typically 30 meter long and 10 meter width. And once you make a tube like this, it can drop on the seabed. All right. Once you drop on the seabed, it forms a very stable structure like this. All right. And of course, it can continue and build up until the sea level, if you want, which is what you see here, above the sea level. Right. So that you can form a dike by itself, or you can form a dike such as the land reclamation can be done behind it. Okay, so you can see that this is one of the typical, and this is one of the pictures we've done using underwater sonar. You can scan, you can see the construction of this, or by scanning it, you can see the dike is very stable under the seabed. This is done about 25 meters below sea level. All right. Now, this kind of construction is particularly useful when you talk about climate change, because just look at these two pictures from my neighbors in Myanmar, and of course, we also one from Singapore. These are typical lighthouse structures. A lighthouse built on this small little island, but imagine just a look at this one. You can see even crack already took place. This is just 2 years ago, just before COVID. You can imagine that with the climate change effect, with the more severe seawater rising, storm surge, all this stability of all these lighthouses are in question. Now, to repair to all these lighthouses will be very costly because it is far behind in the middle of the sea. Right, so therefore, the cheap and easy method, like what I mentioned to you, the tube like this, will be very useful, very practically achievable by maintaining the stability of these lighthouses, which is currently waiting for COVID over to start the construction of that. So this works for us in Singapore as well as our neighboring country, which will be very useful. Now, that is the first innovative method we talk about. Now, the second innovative method I want to quickly run into is what we call a beach restoration. Now, when the beach restoration, I just have to show you one or two pictures. You can see these are the typical eroded beach in Malaysia coast or in Singapore coast. Okay, typical. And this you can see from the picture there. This is in the early 90s. Right, and that is 20 years has passed. I'm sure now the beach is even more severely damaged, and all this beach erosion can affect also the houses, the people living next to the beaches, right, which is quite common in some of the coastal area. Now, of course, to solve this again is very challenging, partly because the infrastructure, the road leading to all these villages are limited. Even in Singapore, the stable refurnishing of these sand beaches actually hydraulically very challenging. You must reprofile the beach coastline such that the sand will be stable, remain there with time under the cyclical tidal wave action. Now, one of the solutions is very simply by putting big enough geotextile bag like this, right? Geotextile bag like this form in the part of the coast, and you'll see that it works pretty well, right? So left-hand side is before, right side is after, and you stay there for almost, you'll see later on, 12 years, beautifully, okay? Now, you may think this is very simple, just get a sandbag and put a sand inside. That's not true, because if you just put a normal sandbag, you'll be damaged under the harsh environment of the wave, as well as under the harsh action of the visitors, right? People will come and cut the bag. So therefore, the integrity of this bag is very, very important, and that you need a very special geotextile material, which in concept very interesting. You must design the geotextile material such that there's a lot of fiber here, like our hair, but this fiber must be strong enough and yet porous enough that I can trap a lot of sand. I think the trick of this particular type of geotextile is there's a lot of sand being trapped on the surface, right? So therefore it looks like sandy color, and sand will stay, and that will increase the strength of this material against intended cutting, as well as protecting the geotextile material against the UV degradation. Okay, so Now I get students to do a test on this geotextile material without sand entrapment or with sand entrapment. And obviously you see the one with sand entrapment will be a lot much stronger, things like that. All right. Now, so you can easily part of this a proper selected sandbag on the sea, on the beach, and then that will really serve protection. Now, even the people, you can have a lot of human activity on top, and there's no problem, right? The integrity will be assured, and it's flexible. You know, people can stand on that, and things like that. It's not as hard as a rock that you make you feel very uncomfortable. I think left-hand side picture will show better how sand was entrapped on top and look like part of the sand body, you know. So that's very nice. So these are 6 months later, and this is you can see that this the bags blend well with the beach, so people do not feel intruded or do not feel uneasy. And over 5 years later, unfortunately, this geotextile changed color a little bit, but nevertheless still blend well with the environment. So this is 5 years later, and then grass started to grow on it. And this is, we also take sample for testing after 5 years and then ensure the strength is still good, even 5 years. And then 8 years later, we continue to take some sample and continue to monitor the performance. And this is 10 years later, just before COVID-19, I went down the site and take pictures, and you suddenly see that a lot of microorganisms will start to grow. Because don't forget, this beach area is all part of what we call the this particular area is what we call intertidal area, where the water will come and go. So a lot of microorganisms will grow, right? So that will enrich the biodiversity, right? So you can see that actually promoting marine ecology in that sense. And yet the material is still stable. Right, and you can see this is 12 years later, just before, because of this presentation, I went around to take some old pictures, right, 12 years later, and this is what we have done just a few months ago. And you can see that the vegetation can grow and this become part of the marine ecology. And yet you protect the coastline so that the sand will not be continually eroded. Okay, so I think that is basically what I want to share. And in short, I just conclude by saying that climate change is here, and the question is not whether it will come, it's when, right? So I think one of the key points I want to stress is we engineers contribute very significantly in mitigation of all this climate change effect, and one of the areas that geotechnical engineers can contribute is toward this coastal protection by using more innovative solutions. We help to reduce the carbon dioxide emission, and yet we can fight against the seawater rising. Okay, I think that is what I want to share. And again, thank you for the ASEAN community for giving me this opportunity to share this in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chiu. I feel like I was sitting in an NUS classroom now.
Oh, thank you. Except that NUS is a simple presentation.
That also reminded me about the days in school, in the academic time. I'm not sure, is this course been taught in the civil engineering undergraduate now? And the geotextile design for coastal? But during my days, geotextiles has not been mentioned in any coastal engineering study. It's just different from the days now.
Yeah, very good question. It was not, I mean, unfortunately, most of the geotechnical engineers, civil engineers are not familiar with geotextile material, even they are here for 50 years already, 1960s until now. But yes, I included in my ground improvement in my geotechnical investigation class in the master class. Yes. So yeah, master class. Yeah, I do cover master class.
Okay. Now, while we're waiting for participants are welcome to post your questions or comments at the chat box. We'll try to answer as many as we can along the way. But while waiting for the rest, perhaps Professor Chiu, one more question. Presumably Singapore has been monitoring seawater rise over the years. Can you share with us the amount of seawater rise over the last 50 years, if it's possible?
Okay, okay, this is tape, right? Okay, the positive answer, yes, we are very sensitive over this. I mean, as I said earlier, it's very natural. We're just an island state, you know, and we are the coastal facility in Singapore include airport, include seaport, etc., etc. So therefore, the seawater rises really will affect us a lot. Now, yes, we have been monitoring it with a lot of deep water gauges and shallow water gauges. Unfortunately, we have a Prime Minister office, one department to kind of oversee all this climate change effect. The actual number, I need some clearance from them before being released. But one thing from engineering perspective, I will say that well, we can debate whether it be 0.5 meter, 0.8 meter, things like that. But one thing for sure, actually, is rising. That probably enough to tell everybody that we have to take this seawater rising climate change effect very seriously, and everybody have to try our best to do a little bit here and there, because that all add together will contribute significantly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Chiu. I think any other questions about? If there's no other questions, I'd like to pass back to our host to show our appreciation to you, Professor Chiu.
Dr. Young, we have one question in the chat.
Oh, yes. Oh, I didn't see that. How do you deal with storm surge coming from Singapore? Yes.
Oh, that's a very good question. Traditionally, to do the storm surge, you need what we call the breakwater design, or you need to build a stronger or higher revetment, which is what I'm trying to say. So in Singapore, yes, we have planned, or we are in the process of strengthening our coastal defense. In fact, we have a big research study we divided Singapore into like 3-4 regions. Now we are doing the southern region. So we are surveying all our current defense facility, defense kind of strength of it to face the storm surge in the southern part of Singapore. I mean, traditional method will be strengthening the revetment, and that's why my geotube solution will be useful, because that will be a very cost economical, right, to strengthen it at the location where you need. Of course, we also conduct a lot of hydrodynamic study to see which angle, which direction of this storm surge are likely to hit our coastline, right? So I would say that yes, we are doing quite a bit of this research and to either predicting the direction, the location, the amount of storm surge. Number one. Number two, knowing that, how do you build a revetment structure taller, higher, that can affect that, without needing to raise the land inward. That's what we talk about the polder concept. So I think that I may present in some other conference or opportunity next time. Yes, but this is to answer to this question. Yes, we are looking at this very seriously. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, without further ado, let me pass back to the host to show our appreciation.
Thank you, Dr. Young. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Engineer Chu Soon Ho, for his presentation on the innovative coastal geotechnical design for sea level rising adaptation for CAFEO39. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we proceed with the next presenter, can I check if Vu Hong Tuong from Vietnam is here? Can I check if Vu Hong Tuong from Vietnam is here? Can you please unmute yourself or nudge us in the chat group? Okay. Otherwise, we will proceed with the next presentation by Engineer Yin Nia from Myanmar. We are on environmental impact assessment for solar energy system. I will pass the floor to our second moderator, Dr. Seong. Dr. Seong? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Huwaida, for your. Thank you very much. So, good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this morning. Can I take this opportunity to remind presenters that you have 10 minutes for your presentation. So I will inform you when there are only 2 more minutes remaining. Please stick to the program schedule. At the end of the presentation, we will have 5 minutes for Q&A. Participants, please ask your question by raising your hand using the reaction button. Alternatively, you may write your question in the chat box, and I will read the question out loud for the presenter to answer. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Engineer Yin Yin from Myanmar, who will be presenting on environmental impact assessments of solar energy system. Over to you, Engineer Yin Yin.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Engineer Yin Yin. I'm from Myanmar, West Yangon Technological University. My presentation title, Environmental Impact Assessment of Solar Energy System. My presentation of the outline, that is introduction, solar energy system, that is solar collector, solar heating, drying using solar energy, electrical energy converter, environmental impact assessment, summarizing of environmental impact of solar cells, and then conclusion and reference. Next, introduction. All human activities, some atmospheric, environmental pollution, extensive consumption of fossil fuel, global warming, greenhouse effect, climate change, ozone layer depletion, etc. To reduce fossil fuel emitting greenhouse gases to replace fossil fuel environmentally friendly, clean, renewable energy sources, future essential component of sustainable energy, some level of environmental effect by studying and assessment. Next, solar energy. That is solar energy from heat and radiation using variable changing and development of technology. Large magnitude of solar power available make high available source of electricity that is percent approximate. To space, why the rest absorbed by ocean, clouds, and land masses. Neither possible nor necessary to use by a small portion of this energy. The production of solar energy was unlimited. And next, solar energy, solar collected. Basically, three types collector, flat plate, evaluated to concentrated flat plate collector are the most commonly used type. Next, flat plate collector made of glass covered and transparent material absorbing plate and applying. Radiation pass through the glass plate is absorbed by the solar plate. 90% the solar radiation fell on the surface and absorbed. Concentrated collector, this obtain highly FRD, water or other processing fluid, temperature above obtain 140 degrees Celsius cannot obtain flat plate solar. Concentrated collector utilize about 140 degrees Celsius. The function of optical system to derive the focused solar rays to receiver. The receiver to absorb the solar ray convert to thermal energy, make absorber rotation and acceleration paths. Classify their condension 4 types: flat receiver, flat reflector, pipe and spherical shaped receiver, and parabolic reflector. Pipe or spherical shaped receiver and flat moving reflector in separate group. Pipe and spherical receiver and flat single moving reflector. Evacuated tube collector. Evacuated tube collector, solar water heater absorber. Absorber converting heat to use in water heating. Evacuated tube solar industry. Next, solar heating. Sunlight uses heat water or air in building active heating. That is, active heating transfer solar heat directly interior space storage system for later use. Cannot provide adequate space heating, auxiliary or backup system provide additional. Passive engine, solar energy use and operate rate front. That is absorbed to current of distributed right through a window. By using material heating to rate, day, dispatch, and night over 24/7 event phase or normally get post. By using solar energy, water from solid substance by evaporating, energy data is processed supplied by solar energy. When the older solar application mankind zero cost, that is the advantages. Like as fast road, people separate this grain to increase the natural solar drying process. And electric energy converter. Solar cells, then is solar array electric cell, solar panel combination solar cell, solar radiation from the sun for to converter, that is transfer electron flow and distributed load. Can separate electrical energy area during the PN transition for the current in the sun is connected to the semi-conductive crystal. Solar power constraints, some concentrated wire and working fluid goes to the thermal cycle. Thermal cycle convert electricity, electrical generator, solar power convert solar energy to hydrocarbon fuel. So hydrocarbon fuel can be converted electrical energy into the combustion engine generator set. Environmental impact assessment. Environmental impact assessment, that process. Environmental management. Environmental management planning, decision making, keeping and improving the quality of the environment. That is environmentally friendly industrialization. Keeping the user protection license, balance between economic development and the environmental protection. That is development of sustainable, industrializing, friendly. Solar energy environmental friendly system, construction of solar energy systems may be subjected to the EIA process. Minimize the potential impact on the environment. That is potential environmental impact associated solar power land use, habitat loss, water use, and the use of hazardous material in manufacturing. Then category depending on technology included two-third category, PV, photovoltaic, solar cells, and concentrating solar thermal plants. Solar energy and non-cleaner when compared with conventional energy sources, many significant advantages which are not producing any pollutant during operation. Some significant impact the environment just like any other energy. And when land use and thermal pollution, that is environmental EIA, environmental impact. This better use of natural ecosystem dependent upon specified category, topography of the landscape, the area of land cover, solar energy system that provide for land distance from area from natural beauty or sensitive ecosystem and biodiversity. Construction activity that construction stage during, such as earth movement and by transport movement. And sentimental line, cultivated and is cultivated land likely to be a reason or separate association is agreement and displeasure. Land use and thermal pollution. Next, once cultivated land is possible to identify soil protected area. Absorbing more energy by the earth and otherwise will be reflected by the surface back to space. Erotic and acidification pollutant coolant liquid may be changed every 2 to 3 years. It transforms to contain glycose nitrate, nitrates, bromate, and sulfate. Solar cells do not emit any pollutant during their operation, but solar cells molecule contain some toxic substances, and there is a potential risk of releasing this chemical to the environment during fire.
Engineer Yin,
Yes.
just to inform you, you have about 1 minute
Yes.
left.
Particular impact of particular interaction or highly depend on the type of the screen and surrounding. Positive error state impact the modern feeding comparison historically. Conclusion of solar energy increasing important and alternative energy. That is due to being environmentally friendly and infinite energy source impact the size or nature of the project and size specified. Most of these sudden and associated with loss of energy, miscellaneous precautions that could be taken to minimize the environmental impact of solar energy system, toxic substances used in the solar cell module. It will be wise to increase the module efficiency and lifespan, research the possibility of recycling. Next question and answer. My presentation PowerPoint, that is a paper review notes.
Thank you very much, Engineer Yin.
Yes.
I would now like to open the floor for any question.
Yes.
While waiting for the host to inform me if there's any question, may I start by asking you about the solar power in Myanmar? Can you share with us about the solar power in Myanmar, please?
Solar power in Myanmar. Solar power in Myanmar. Solar power Mebu solar power plant. Mebu solar power plant that is 40. Now distributed 40 megawatt. And now use Mebu solar plant, one of the off-grid system, many use available in off-grid solar power system, off-grid system in Myanmar, available. Yes.
Thank you, Engineer Yin. So there's a 40 megawatt solar power plant in Bimbu. That's what you're saying. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Any more questions? Host? Since there's no more question, once again, Engineer Yin, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for your kind presentation. Over to you, host.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Xiao. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Engineer Yin for her presentation on environmental impact assessment of solar energy system for CAFEO39. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We will start with the next presentation by Vu Wong Tong from Vietnam on early disease warning system with support of AI big data. Can I please invite our moderator, Dr. Yong, back to the floor? Dr. Yong?
Hi, hello. Hello?
Hello, Mr. Vu Wong. Can you please switch on your camera, please?
I can see.
Can you please switch on your camera?
Okay.
Welcome back. The floor is yours.
Good morning. I am Vũ Hoàng Thương. My name is Vũ Hoàng Thương.
Yes. You're given 10 minutes of presentations and another 5 minutes of Q&A. Are you able to share your screen? Okay. Yeah, we
Can you
got
see
it.
your
Yes,
can you
yes,
see your
yes, we are okay now. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Wu.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Go ahead.
Good morning. Hi everybody. I present my process. Early this is one in system with support of AI and big data. Problem. In the past 3 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected world economics, including Vietnam. Therefore, it's necessary to have an early warning system to detect potential disease in the body so that they can prevent, screen, detect, and treatment. To take measures in geotechnology, such as AI, big data analysis, to help doctor to accurate diagnose and detect disease. People can provide information about the location they go through. With the convention for investigation and analysis to help scale authority control and judge effectively. Solution function, data collection, analysis, and modeling disease data. Git map online model of disease claim in pandemic area. Epidemic warning system. Solution architecture. Solution model of health data collection for disease management. Data medical from CDC, from IoT device, medical research on the world. Data from travel agent airline. On data is data normalization and now data center medical. Function screen of early warning system of disease. Solution. The way of trade and tourist connects between Vietnam and the world. Switch off infection degree of danger of disease impact the biological investigation from medical experts from real-time continuous update from tributaries data around the world. Collect medical examination and treatment histories data of patient as hospital for value and data analysis for vulnerable. Beyond medical relation data about epidemic to make decisions about the world patient has history of contact with other people. Some as mainstream. The receiver of a solution is use technology, data analysis, big data, and CAF, and AI. Application product consideration for government of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, a CDC of province in Vietnam. Project can share the recent and specific application for the Department of Health and the Health agent of the Robin and City in the CAFE and the overseas medical
Mr.
organization.
Wu, sorry to interrupt for a while. I think your screens are not moving. So perhaps you want to select the new screen. Your slides are still static there.
Sorry.
Your slides, yeah, have not moved yet. So you have not selected the new slides. You see whether you have not shared the new slides yet. Yeah, only the first slide. You like
Can you see?
We are still seeing the first slide. We have not seen the rest of the slides yet. So can you try again? Select.
Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, but the first slide only.
The first slide.
We are still at your first slide. They have not moved yet. Can you try to see whether you have?
First slide.
We are still at the first slide. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Move on.
I don't understand.
Okay, continue, Mr. Woon.
I continue what you said. I continue to say.
Yes, please do that. Please do that. Please continue, Mr. Wu.
Continue. Business model accept to investment capital from three channel. Fund for investment in science and technology developed for medical and digital health field. From domestic and foreign investment fund from NGO. Value of investment in products developed about 2 billion Việt Nam đồng. Commercial value of product to market 300 million Việt Nam đồng. In on unit from product package deliver rent by month, quarter, year. Market opportunity target customer, CDC, hospital, citizen. First year, send product to Minister of Skill and Minister of Information and Communication for price and value. Send product to participate in the digital transform program of Minister of Skill. Send product to CDC hospital use demo for 1 month. Conduct products calibration as future optimized model for customer. Second year to fifth year deliver product to CDC hospital in Rovin. Some implementation in Bình Định Rovin in Vietnam. In Hồ Chí Minh, demo in Hồ Chí Minh City. Thống Nhất Hospital, Early Military Medical Hospital. Condition and suggestion. Problem of asset. The applied biological investment database of Department of Health background hospital list sharing method for testing, valuation, and optimize when running train machine learning model in AI. Besides is detection and support of medical in the medical field, the support soil and support of expert who are doctor in the field, labeling of medical email in a value of medical product, because the ratio of medical products require solution accuracy, reliability, high stability, and data security. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Zoon? Yeah. We have time here for a couple of questions to Mr. Woon. I'm waiting for the participants who have just joined in or who have joined in earlier. Please post your questions and comment at the chat box. We will try to get back to you as soon as possible, or in fact, we'll try to answer them.
Sorry, you see, at now you see the first slide PowerPoint.
Yes, we have been watching at the first slide only, because the rest of the slides are not moving. Anyway, Any other?
Can you
Yeah,
see?
now we see the rest. Now we are seeing, yes. Now, yes, I've seen this slide 13 here. Yeah. Perhaps you just walk through some of the slides just now you missed. Yeah. Yeah, just quickly flip.
Can you see on slide?
Yes, now we do. We are seeing it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
QA question. So the solution in the demo in Vietnam, Thống Nhất Hospital, early military medical hospital, in Bình Định, Việt Nam. Some implementation at hospital.
Okay. Perhaps, Mr. Wood, share with us this AI and big data dealing with the recent COVID-19 pandemic. How effective are these big data analysis? Mr. Wen, can you hear me?
Can you repeat?
Can you hear me? Can you elaborate about this COVID-19 pandemic warning system for your new big data or so-called AI analysis? Is that possible? Is there any?
Okay. I use new technology AI and big data to early warning system to show in the for healthcare in Vietnam. Okay.
Right. Now I'd like to pass back to the host to show our appreciation to you, Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Yong. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Mr. Wu Hong Fong from Vietnam for his presentation on early disease warning system with the support of AI big data for CAFEO39. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
To start with the next presentation, I will pass the floor to our moderator, Dr. Xiong. Dr. Xiong, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weda. Our next speaker, which I'll be moderating, is also from Myanmar. So please join me in welcoming Pai Sun Tun, who will be talking about automated multi-level parking system. Over to you, sir.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you speak slightly louder, please?
Okay.
Yeah, we can see your slide.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to present my paper to you. And my name is Pedro, and I'm from Myanmar. Today, I would like to present about its automatic car parking block systems. Here, this is the outline of my presentation. Before I start, I would like to share a quick story of my automated car parking log systems. In these days, car is one of the most popular transportation system, main transportation system. So a lot of cars are produced daily, and there's a lot of car on the road, so we cannot keep a car in our house, in our bedroom, of course. So we need a lot of parking spaces. By combining with the technology, using a double automatic car parking system or multi-level car parking system can save more time, also reduce the human effort. So uh, also sustain for the environment due to the provide sustain the environment, as well as in this project I provide an Arduino controller with the sensors and affordable Proteus software systems. So there are two types of car parking spaces, but it's a lot of car parking type system that I use multi-level car parking system. I would like to share, but I will share more system about it. There are semi-automated car parking system and fully automated car parking system. For the semi-automated car parking system, it can handle less than hundreds of cars, but for the fully automated car parking system, it can handle over hundreds of cars. And also there are single and multi-level of automatic car parking system, as well as a slide lifting car parking system, rotatory car parking system, and car stabilizers. Yes, as we can see like in the movie. So in my project, it includes the gate lifting system, rotation, and about the countings of the cars. So here is the scope of my project. In my project, I divided into three parts, like entrance part, basement part, and then level one car parking part. So as you can see here is the system of my flow. This is the flowchart. Next, I would like to share about the entrance part system. In the entrance part system, this LCD display will be shown for the car that there is how many cars are free for the check for the free slot from the LCD. Then the passcode when it is here is a passcode when it is free space. Then the counting car when the car is passed. Then we close the gate only when the car is detected by the IR gate when it's away from the gate there, so there is no jam when the car is entered to the parking space. For the system, there's two types of security system you can use. It like as before, as I showed before, like this Passcode system, and here is RFID system. For the RFID system, you can use a private RFID card when the RFID card reader, the gate will be open and the gate will be closed when the IR is detected like before. For the basement car parking system, there's I managed to make a 5 car parking system slot, and when the 5 parking system is full, you may enter to the basement level. So when the 5 parking is full, the gate will be open for the first level. So here is the first level of the parking space. It includes lifting and sorting systems. It's like there are three sorting systems, X, Y, Z system for the lifting and the changing the direction with the servo motor like 90 degree, 120 degree, and the 180 degrees for the parking space. And the parking back, another motor is used as a conveyor, and the car will be parked automatically. So then after the car is parking, the system will be reversed. So here is the simulation result of my entrance system. Here the code. When the car is entered, the driver needs to enter the passcode. Then when the passcode is correct, it will show us welcome, and the barrier gate will be open, and then when the relocking state, the gate will be closed systems. Here is a simulation result for it. But when the parking is full, it will show as full parking display will show as a full parking. As well as when the code is incorrect, the gate will not be open and it will show as a code is incorrect. And the next part is about the basement of the parking system. For the basement of the parking system, here is a free parking. It will show also another display will show for the free parking space, and that there will be the LCD, two LCD for the door is open stage or the closing stage. So when the parking is free, full, this door will be open and the gate will be start turns here to the 0 stage to the 90 stage. It's like a barrier gate. So here is a simulation result for the level 1 car parking space. I would like to share with the video. So here it is. So here it is when there is no car, there is a use stage. When the car is one, there is a one stage, and the motor will be start as forwarding stage. As you can see here. Later, the subway will be changed. This subway will be changed direction for the parking light, as I said before, 90 degree. Then the parking motor will be start running. And then after the parking stage, the car will be reversed, and this is reverse chaining system, and the all system will be reversed here. It will change to the normal stage. And for the next car is enter, it will be for the next car is enter, it will be like that. 111 stage here, as you can see here. As also like that, it will be done as like this, as I said before, like this. And there will be one more stage. As a 3 car parking space for the level 1 parking. As the system is by adding more sensors, we can add to the level, or we can add more parking spaces. So next slide is about the conclusion. What about the conclusion? By doing this project, making skillful about the code as well as process sequence, and the safety is really safety in the real life project, because using only RFID card or the Passcode system, and using the affordable sensor, and it gave me a lot of achievements on it. And recommendation for recommend to use in accommodation system for the real life projects, and it reduces human effort and less time, as well as I said before, it's like decrease environmental impact, as well as save from the theft problems and create more spaces. So for the product extension, I would like to use Internet of Things IoT system by getting an SMS system. The driver can be looking and also know at the SMS. Also know there is a free space or not by getting the SMS systems by using the web-based accesses. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer the questions you may ask now.
Thank you very much, for your presentation.
Yes.
I now open the floor for any question. As usual, you can type your question in the chat box, and we will read it out to you. So while waiting for the questions to come in, can you move to the previous slide, please, under recommendation?
Okay.
Thank you. So, with reference to your recommendation, you propose Internet of Things using cloud web-based as you are aware, anything and everything that's part of Internet of Things is at risk of hacking. What security measure will you incorporate in your system to prevent this issue? Thank you.
Yes, for the security system, we usually I plan as a security, I plan as a change like changing passcode per week or 5 day per days for as well as changing passcodes is the most reliable things on it. Yeah. As for the more security systems like it is also RFID card is also we can change a little bit on it. Like we change code systems, it can change the whole things. Like it already see for the from the problems on it. It can be changed like I'm written code as a we can change it easily on it. The security card can change easily on it. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. So we have a question from Puja Brunei. The question is, how much is the return of investment for one typical project?
So as the car is still and how to say it's like the most important transportation. As long as the car is on the road, the how to say the profit will come from it. The car need to be parked, as I said before. The car need a parking all the time. We cannot park in our apartment or in our bedroom like that. So we need parking spaces. So
yeah. So the question, so the question is the investment that you put into this system. How long
investment like
you mean like investment will be?
How long? So let me calculate first. Can I answer in the offline, please? You may test my email. You may send a mail to my mail, please. Here is my mail.
Okay. So I welcome any more questions from the floor, please. While waiting for our presenter to do some calculation. We still have time.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, please.
Yes. How to say it? This is like I'm doing a project in the how to say it's like I'm making a project on it. For the when I start making on it, it costs like about like $100 on it. But we can get when one car is in, we can like well, as we can see like $0.5 it might be like $0.5 in each. But if $0.5 was a car in our context, thousands of millions of cars will come to the park here. So we can calculate by that fee, and after the 1 year, it will be like at least we can get a profit on it. But for the in my project, in the typical project for it, I cost like it's like about $100 on it. It's a mini project for my specialty.
Thank you very much for sharing. So please feel free to contact with our presenter here for any more questions. If you don't mind, please type in the chat box your email so we can be in touch with you.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that's the end of this presentation from you. So thank you very much once again, Pei. Over to you, host.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siong. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Mr. Pei Sontut from Myanmar for his presentation on automated multi-level parking lot system for CAFEO39. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we proceed with the intermission, can I check if Joy Chakraborty is here? Can you please unmute yourself and switch on your camera or nudge us in the chat box? Can I check if Rima Ghosh is here? Can I also check if Prahlada Ramaro is here? Can you please unmute yourself, switch on your camera or nudge us in the chat box? Okay. So to wait for the next presenters to sign in, dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will take a short break to give time for the presenters to log in, and we will continue shortly at 11:50. Thank you, everyone. We will continue at 11:50 a.m. Brunei time. Thank you. Can I check if Nur Hidayat is here? Madam Nurhidayani, if you're online, can you please nudge me in the chat box, please? Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. We will start with the next presentation by Nur Hidayatullah Naimuddin from Indonesia. I'll pass the floor to our moderator, Dato' Siong. Dato' Siong, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waida. Good morning, Ms. Nur Hidayani. How are you?
Morning, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Will you be sharing your slide?
Sure.
Okay, so distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome our next speaker, Nur Hidayani from Indonesia, who will be presenting on green infrastructure for urban climate resilience. Case study, Makassar, Indonesia, and Enschede, the Netherlands. Over to you.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm going to present my paper entitled Urban Climate Resilience for Flooding by Using Green Infrastructure. So this is actually the two case study. The first one in Makassar, which is in Indonesia, and Enschede, which is in the Netherlands. So actually, let's start by 2018. So I was affected by flooding by myself in 2018, and it was the first experience that I ever had during my whole life. And basically, around my surrounding area is never flooding before. And then in 2018, due to the urban rapid growth in urbanization and also land use change, and around my area just flooded with the water. And in 2019, I went to the Netherlands to study about water systems. So that's why today I would like to present how I see in both countries how the water management and how actually the green infrastructure can give some resilience to people in order to mitigate or adapt with flooding. So yes, as I mentioned before, in 2018, there was a big flooding hit Makassar, and that's one of the biggest flooding that happened in the last decade. Around 700 people were evacuated in 2018 flooding based on Disaster Management Agency data. And actually, basically, the government of Makassar has been trying to make some of the plan since 2010 and 2030. This is actually about how they want to create Makassar. The goals of this project is making 30% greener area in the future, which is until now is still ongoing project, and maybe it's still far from the implementations. And let's see what's happened in Enschede. So basically, as we know that Netherlands is actually the low-lying country, which is lies in the under sea level. And actually in the Netherlands in 1953, there was like a big flooding that happened in the Dutch history, which is 2,000 victims at the time because of the flooding that happened in the North Sea. And because of that, actually that's why the Netherlands is really in the front runner on how to make a delta plan and everything to mitigate flooding. And also in Enschede, there was actually flooding in 2010, but this is actually due to the high precipitation and climate change that happened during the time. So basically, the simulation between Makassar and Enschede, what city is actually trying to make the city. So they are trying to make a green infrastructure, and then we will see later what is actually a comparison and what can we see, or maybe what can Makassar learn from Enschede. So beforehand, based on this research in the paper, let's see how does the GI capacities in Makassar seen by local people. This is actually 3 pictures of the existing green infrastructure in Makassar, as you can see in the picture. And what people actually see about green infrastructure, the first they think that green infrastructure is actually become an aesthetic value for them because it makes their area greener, and also they can plant, they can make a beautiful surrounding their area, planting flowers, let's say. And because of that, they feel that it increased the well-being improvement of vulnerable group because of the feeling of happiness that can be arise because they are having green infrastructure in their surrounding area. And let's see what's actually the GI capacities in Enschede seen by local people. This picture is actually taken by me, and this is actually what's happened, the existing green infrastructure in Enschede. As you can see in my screen, we call it as a room back. This is actually now the municipality of Enschede is trying to implement the greener your area, greener your house, and also greener your school. So the citizen in Enschede see that green infrastructure can be used as a rainwater absorption for flooding, and also as a health and well-being. It increases the health and well-being for people. And the last one is the climate adaptations. So as you can see, this is actually how we can see the perception of the people to see GI in both cities. And then how's actually the risk of flooding in Makassar, in Makassar and also in Enschede? The first, because of the flooding accident that happen annually, let's say every year. So actually, every time there's a heavy rainfall in the area of Makassar, the people feel anxiety. So let's say it's a panic attack. Every time there's a heavy precipitation, they will think that their area will be flooded instantly. So it arises anxiety for the local people or the neighborhood, especially in the floodplain area. And also during flooding in Makassar, let's say during my experience, we can see that there are lots of health problems that occur. Let's say because of the flooding that happened, it actually has dirty water. And sometimes we have no option. We have to take the dirty water, we have to use it as a minimum as we can, as optimal as we can. So it's actually arise the health problem within the citizen. And the third, of course, during the flooding that happened, is disrupt our daily activities because we are trapped in our house. We cannot go anywhere. We cannot go for work. So we cannot do something. In the end, some people, especially when they are entrepreneurship, businessmen, they have to experience economic loss because they cannot just do anything. Meanwhile, in Enschede, actually, although the Netherlands is one of the countries that well known with the big flooding histories, but the citizens feel almost no risk with the flooding in the city. Why? Because the Delta plan and also how the government in Enschede trying to mitigate flooding is well implemented. Some people still feel cautious at the same time, but it's less likely like in Makassar itself. So how actually the implementation of green infrastructure to enhance resilience for flooding? Let's see how actually the benefit of green infrastructure in Makassar. As I mentioned before, this is actually one of the green building in Makassar, the existing green building. And actually this is a form of the mall. This mall is actually can reduce 85% of a lot of rainwater runoff in the drainage system around the area. So this is actually kind of a very nice implementation when the city of Makassar, especially for the government want to try to build more a green city, not just making it as a policy, but this is actually to make it true. And also the function of the lorong garden, or we can say how we are trying to greening our alley is actually really good because this lorong garden, the people is actually making vertical garden where they can plant it with the vegetables. Although this kinds of the thing is not really as a rainwater absorption, especially for flooding, at least it also gives kind of, like a climate adaptation for the people, greening your city and everything. Meanwhile, let's see what's happened, the benefit of green infrastructure in Enschede. As you know that actually Netherlands, particularly also in Enschede, they're trying to implement greening your school area or greening your neighborhood. So this is actually what happened. The government trying to give some subsidy for them. So if they want to try to green their area, make it, for example, the usage of rainwater absorption, they will try to subsidy. And also, this one is a room bag. This is actually this room bed is actually in the middle of the, like urban area in Enschede. This is actually kind of, like a rainwater mitigations and also, like a recreation for the people. And this is when there is a heavy precipitation that occur in Enschede. The water will not come to the urban area because of this kind of the room bed. So there is a drainage system in the side to side in the room bed itself. So the potential to get the water into the urban area is less. And how actually the policy implementation evaluation of GI? Let's see what's happened in Makassar. So the implementation of the implementation evaluation of the GI is actually the first, the lack of ecosystem services in Makassar. As we see that the rapid growth of urbanization for sure. Let's see how the greener area is not as much as we expected. And the second, the lack of planning and law enforcement in spatial planning. And the lack bottom-up governance. So there is a lack coordination and collaboration between the local level, provinces, and also the national level. And also there's a policy overlap. So in Indonesia, particularly let's say in Makassar, there are lots of policies. So every institutions, they are having a policies about green area, about green infrastructure, about how you mitigate your green area. However, this become a policy overlap between one institution to the other institutions. So that's why the lack of coordination and collaboration between one institution and the other institution happen. Meanwhile, in Enschede, in terms of policy evaluation implementations, there is a clear responsibilities of each stakeholders. So the Dutch government, when they're trying to make a delta plan for flooding, let's say, or to mitigate water, they're already trying to make clear responsibilities between the national government, the provinces, and the local governments. So there is a clear responsibilities. And each government system, they will not cross boundaries because they know their limitations and they know their responsibilities. And this kind of the system is actually minimizing conflict of interest between one institution to the other institution. And this is actually make how you are trying to implement your policy into a better actions. And also, of course, this is actually clearly measured for flood risk. So basically, as we can see, how the policy implementation in Indonesia, or especially in Makassar itself, this is actually hinder the capacity because there's a policy overlap and also it needs more collaboration and cooperation between all the governance systems. So how actually the challenges to implement the GI in what cities? Of course, in Makassar first, the law of awareness, because based on this research, this is still, to ask the people about how the understanding of green infrastructure is less. Only, like educated people that go to the college, let's say, that they're actually aware that this is actually a type of green infrastructure. And second, uneven distribution of information. Because, this is still become one of the challenges, how we spread the information to all the level of society. And the third, limited knowledge in climate adaptation. As we know that climate happening, but only certain people that understand that climate happening, only certain people can understand that this is how we can do to adapt with climate. And the fourth one is a weak enforcement of law, as I mentioned before, because of the policy overlap and also the lack of coordination and collaborations. So it hinders the capacity of the law or policy that need to be implemented in the city. Meanwhile, in Enschede, the law of public participation is still happening, although there's awareness of green infrastructure in the city, but still, how to involve the society in order they want to greener their area, in order they want to try to make to make a green infrastructure to participate in all the municipalities' action is still needed. And also uneven distribution of information, especially for the subsidy. As we know that in the Netherlands, they're actually giving a subsidy when we want to move to, let's say, renewable energy, and we want to try to make a harvesting of rainwater and everything. They're actually giving us a subsidy. However, this distribution of information is still sometimes is uneven. So that's why it's still needed. So based on that, risk of flooding affect inhabitants in Makassar and Enschede. And the second, the more stakeholder involvement with the proper collaboration create confusion of GA implementations. GA has benefit for increasing well-being, rainwater absorption and climate adaptations. And the last one, communication approach is needed for future implementation. So thank you everyone. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noor. Can I call you Ms. Noor?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So thank you for sharing with us your exciting research in your case study of Makassar and Enschede. And also thank you very much for giving us a virtual tour of both places. It's really interesting to see the photos. Okay, we open up the floor for any question, please. As usual, you can type your question in the chat box. Host, any question at the moment? No? So while waiting for the question to come in, if you don't mind, Ms. Noor, if I can ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you very much. So in your slide earlier, you mentioned that in the city of Makassar, there is an initiative to increase 30% more green area. What is the process at the moment and how are they going to do that?
This has actually become kind of, let's say, I don't even see how is it, but they're trying to, now some of the, the governors of Makassar, they're trying to build the garden, rebuild the garden, and also they're trying to make the effectiveness of the garden. And now, I think now, maybe in some years later, they're trying also to build more the greener area. But let's say now it's not, I could say that it's not even 30%, nor even half of it.
Right. So in your opinion, building more green areas will be able to mitigate the flood issue?
To mitigate flood, yes, but it's not really like, make the flooding not happening. So what the green area can do is how they can absorb the rain. So in the end, the effect of flooding will not as worse as before. So I will say that in Makassar, the flooding will still exist because even if you are trying to make a green area, but you are not really trying to to fix the drainage system. So it's still happening. But what can green area do is how to reduce the water from the flooding itself.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noor. So we have a question from Rahmat. Please, you can ask your question.
Okay, sorry, sir. I just give my picture in this slide, but I want to ask Mr. Nurhidayani. You try to explain about the correlation among policy and the green infrastructure. What the big challenging? How to include the opportunity of the Enschede and Makassar to collaborate in policy if this infrastructure implemented in Makassar? Thank you.
Can I answer it directly? So I think that if you want to try to implement green infrastructure, the first thing that we need to do, of course, how we are trying to see the collaboration within the governance. I always say that cooperation and collaboration is needed. Why? Because in Makassar particularly, there are lots of institutions that address the same policy. So you cannot make the implementation of the green infrastructure if you don't have communications between these kinds of institutions. So even if you are having the green infrastructure itself, there will be also maybe another problem in the future on how you maintain the green infrastructure itself, because every institution will have the different policy again. So let's say that collaboration and cooperation is needed in the very first hand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have another question from Farina of Puja. The question reads, may I know what kind of subsidy given to the people to do gardening?
Yeah. So actually, the government, the municipality of Enschede, they will give certain like when they are want to make a gardening or greener their area, they will invest. They will give them like a trees and also all of the plants. And also in the meantime, they can also, if they want to make a rainwater absorption, let's say, they will give some of cost the subsidy. So there will be a percentage, they will calculate it and they will tell them that we can give you this certain amount of budget if you want to do it. So that's kind of the subsidy given by people in Enschede.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the city of Enschede is very beautiful.
It is actually.
So we have another question from Asman of Public Works Department of Brunei. Is rainfall intensity similar in pattern in both cities? May I ask how much is the average monthly precipitations?
So actually the rainfall intensity in the two cities is different, of course. In Enschede, we can say that, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know how much the monthly average precipitations, but what I can say is different because, the climate situation between two cities is different. So it's also affect and how the precipitation in cities. So the precipitation is higher in Makassar compared to Enschede. So that's something that I can conclude.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions, please? Ms. Noor, can you just off your video and on it again because you appear freeze? Any more questions from the floor? Yeah, yes. Since there's no more question, on behalf of Puja, I would like to thank you very much for your insightful presentation. All the best in your research. Over to you, host.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Siong. We would now like to present the certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Nur Hidayati Namiruddin, for her presentation on green infrastructure for urban climate resilience, case study Makassar, Indonesia, and the Netherlands. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of paper presentation, day 2, session 1. Before ending the session today, I would like to invite all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to switch on your camera and join us for a formal group photo. I'm going to give a few seconds for everyone to switch on their camera.
Yes, we'd like to encourage everyone to join us in the group photo, please.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna start with page 1. Page 1, smile. 1, 2, 3. Page 2, smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank everyone for participating in this event. We apologize for any shortcomings in today's session, and I wish you all a pleasant day and stay safe. Please also be reminded that we will have our closing ceremony tomorrow. We will have our closing ceremony for CAFEO39 tomorrow. Please join us. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay safe. Enjoy your lunch.
Recording stopped.